Now it's a straight fight for survival. The Glasgow Climate Pact, for all its restraints and diplomatic language, looks like a suicide pact. This was a complete greenwash. This was a loud slap on the face of us. Assalamu alaikum. Dear world leaders of today's world, you have catastrophically betrayed humanity at large by failing to protect the people that are most affected by this climate crisis, and instead caving into the interests of fossil fuel and other powerful corporations. This was a complete greenwash. This was a loud slap on the face of us. COP26 has clearly failed to deliver an outcome that protects the planet. Instead, it has deceived the very foundations that United Nations was built in. A pledge to the people. Throughout their negotiations, our world leaders have made choices that chip away, ignore, or throw away our rights as human beings, often discarding the most marginalized communities around the world that are facing the most bitter experiences of this damage and climate change. Your failure to commit to maintaining the global temperature rise at 1.5 degrees Celsius will condemn more than 500 million people, mostly in the global south, to insufficient water and hundreds of millions of people to extreme heat waves. Despite this disastrous scenario, wealthy countries have failed to commit money towards the compensating communities and countries that are suffering loss and damage as a result of this climate change. Neither have they committed to providing climate finance to developing countries primarily as grants. It is bitterly disappointing to see the many loopholes in the COP26 agreement, which bow to the interests of fossil fuel corporates rather than our rights. The agreement fails to call for the phasing out of all fossil fuels and fossil fuel subsidies, demonstrating the lack of ambition and bold action needed at this critical time. It is a hollow and unacceptable substitute for real zero-emission targets. Now it's a straight fight for survival. The Glasgow Climate Pact, for all its restraints and diplomatic language, looks like a suicide pact. After so many squandered years of denial, distraction, and delay, it's too late for incremental change. What we needed at the COP26 climate conference was a decision to burn no more fossil fuels after 2030. Instead, powerful governments sought a compromise between our prospects of survival and the interests of fossil fuel industry. But there was no room for compromise. The decisions made by our world leaders in Glasgow have some grave consequences for all of humanity. As they have clearly forgotten about the people they serve, the people must come together and show them what can be achieved. Over the next 12 months, we must stand together to call on our government to take ambitious act on this climate change that puts people and human rights at its center. If we do not put our hearts and minds into solving this threat to humanity, then we will lose everything. So now is the time to change this. We must work together to actually show our governments what can be achieved. We have to work together to actually reduce this climate change, bring the world back to its normal state, and help all these people around the world. Because sometimes the people who cause the less carbon emission and who produce the less climate change is the ones who is suffering the more damage. So that's why we should all work together to stop this. And this COP26, we have not been able to done much. So I hope next time we will be able to solve this problem, and our world leaders will be able to understand what is actually happening instead of thinking about their own benefits. Thank you and assalamu alaikum.